Preparatory work. Installation should have an independent operating space and isolation room, avoiding wet, dusty, corrosive gases in the environment. Repair can be all-weather work. The work site should take dusk, rain measures, isolation room. In order to isolate the impact of adverse environmental conditions on the product installation and production process. Environmental conditions. A. All weather. B. Optimal environment. Air relative humidity less than 70%. No obvious dust or corrosive gases on site. Site safety and production work. The site should have fire extinguishing measures, fusion header installation, fabrication drawings, and fabrication procedure record sheets are correctly complete. Forms. Check whether the tools and materials required for the fusion installation are complete. Stripping. Stripping follow with the dimensions of the installation instructions. Strip off the outer sheath, long end 1000 mm, short end 800 mm. Leave 30 mm the rest of the steel armor at each end. Leave 80 mm the rest of the inner sheath at each end. Remove the filler spare, 3-phase separation. Measure 180 mm plus 1 second length of connecting tube. Mark with the PVC tape and strip the Cooper shield. Peel off the semi-conductive layer according to the length of the installation instructions. Be careful not to damage the insulation when stripping the semi-conductive layer. The end of the semi-conductive layer is chamfered with a tool to make a smooth transition between the semi-conductive layer and the insulating layer. Add 3 mm to 1 second the length of the connecting tube and cut off the insulation. Use a taper cutter to chamfer the insulation. Retain the inner semiconductor layer of 10 mm. Sand the surface of the insulation and clean the insulation. The short end of the stripping covered with copper mesh and the long end of the stripping covered with a cold shrink tube. Installation of connecting tube. Sleeve the connecting tube and crimp it. Crimping should follow the center of the connecting tube to both sides. After crimping, file the corners and burrs on the connecting tube and clean the connecting tube. Sand the surface of the connecting tube with a 320 abrasive belt. Be careful not to sand the semi-conductive layer. Clean the surface of the connecting tube. Recovery conductor shielding. Wrap semi-conductive cloth and semi-conductive tape around the connecting tube and conductor surfaces in a half-lap fashion. Recovery insulation layer. Restore the insulation section between the pencil ends with insulating materials 3 to 4 millimeters above the original cable insulation surface. Cover the shrink tube so that the shrink tube shrinks to the surface of the insulation layer. Wrap tin foil around the surface of the cold shrink tube. Install and connect the temperature control device. Install the heating belt. Ensure that the equipment and instruments are connected correctly. Set the heating temperature and heating time. And start the heating device until the insulation layer is restored. Remove the heating tape and cold shrink tubing in turn and check the state of restoration of the insulation surface. Sand the surface of the insulation with 320 sandpaper until the surface is smooth throughout. Recovery insulation shielding. Apply the semi-conductive paint evenly from the semi-conductive port at one of the cable ends and then to the other end of the connector. Wrap the semi-conductive tape in half-lap fashion in sequential order. Pull out the copper mesh. Lap over the copper shield at each end of the cable and secure with constant force springs. Waterproof sealing treatment. The three faces are arranged together. The filling is restored, fixed with PVC tape, and wrapped as a whole in a half-lap manner with white PVC tape. Sand the outer sheath, steel armor, and inner sheath with coarse sandpaper and clean. Wrap the waterproof tape around the inner sheath of the cable, and wrap the waterproof tape in a half lap from one end of the inner sheath to the other end of the inner sheath. Connect the steel armor at both ends of the cable with a grounding wire and secure it with a constant force spring, and wrap PVC tape around the constant force spring. Wrap the ground wire with PVC tape to keep it tight against the inner waterproof tape. Wrap the waterproof tape from one end of the outer sheath to the other end of the outer sheath with a half lap, and the two ends of the outer sheath were lapped 60 millimeters. The winding should be in the opposite direction to the inner layer of waterproof tape. Install the armor belt. Wrap the armor tape in a half-lap way, 50 to 100 millimeters over the waterproof tape. Secure the end armor tape with PVC tape. Allow the armor tape to cure before moving the cable. Installation finished. Clean up the site. Thanks for watching.